Hey, it's me, JoJo from Jerz, and shocker, I have something to say. Let's talk about God making Trump, shall we? When Donald Trump was a 5-year-old boy, he was caught throwing rocks at a baby in a crib in the neighboring yard. When he was eligible for the draft, while his peers went off to war, he sought medical deferments for an ailment he didn't have. He left his first wife, who said he raped her, for his second wife, who he then left for his third wife, who he cheated on repeatedly. He bragged about grabbing women by the pussy, cheated people out of their money, stole from charities, mocked a disabled reporter, opined about having sex with his daughter, let Americans die from COVID, and incited horrific violence in order to install himself in an office he was voted out of. He's a sociopathic narcissist, a pathological liar, a sexual predator, and a bigoted, hateful, vitriolic criminal con man who refers to innocent immigrants as vermin while praising murderous despots at the same time. He can't cite a single passage from the Bible. He doesn't attend church. He spends his every Sunday worshiping at the Basilica of St. Bacnine, and he refers to himself as the second coming of Jesus. God has turned him into a tomato sauce-stained sloth-like creature who has to wear a girdle and lifts in his shoes. God impeached him twice, made him lose re-election, and visited upon his term in office a once-in-a-lifetime global pandemic which ravaged our country along with the rest of the world. And then God indicted him 4 times, found him liable of defamation, sexual abuse, and business fraud. God created someone as hateful, impulsive, intolerant, needy, angry, vengeful, selfish, sadistic, depraved, amoral, irreligious, idiotic, envious, and evil as Donald Trump. Made his presidency the most infamous in the history of time. And then he rained down upon him the hammer of justice in historic fashion, all so that he could return him to the office he tried to steal in order to save America? That's God's plan, is it? To reward the physical embodiment of the 7 deadly sins rolled into a senile septuagenarian with the highest political office on the planet? Yeah, I don't fucking think so. Ron Filipkowski is joining me once again this week, and I always have an incredible time talking to him. If you're not following him on social media, I don't even know what you're doing with your time. Hello, because he is amazing. A former Marine, editor at MidasTouch.com, host of the Uncovered podcast, ex-Republican, and all-around awesome human being. I was going to recap 2023 and look toward 2024, but we just had so much fun talking about other shit, because there's always something to talk about, that'll just have to wait. Great conversation. I had fun. I always have fun with Ron. I hope you guys enjoy. See you next time. Welcome back to the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast. My friend, Ron Filipkowski. This is your 3rd time on my podcast. You're the only repeater, but certainly the only 3-timer. So welcome. Thank you for being here again.
No, I'm happy to do it. It's an honor. Thank you.
Well, you know.
Well, I'm following Henry Winkler, so that's like a big deal. You know?
It's true. You are following the Fonz.
After
we just had
Fonz.
Oh my God. We just talked about the Fonz. That was fucking awesome, by the way. Like, that was just, I mean, how often can you say that you get to meet someone? I'm 49, almost 50, and I was watching Happy Days when I was 8, 9, 10. So, like, you know, decades and decades after I was obsessed with him, and I'm just sitting there shooting the shit with him like I've known him forever. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, I mean, a Gen Xer, we grew up with Happy Days. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. And like I said, it was on where I was in Jersey, when I was still in Jersey, it was syndicated. So Channel 5 here, I think it was, would show it every single day. Henry even said it was on in some places twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. So it was like that and the Brady Bunch. I feel like those and Buck Rogers, those were always on. Like, and Laurel and Hardy, weirdly, which was another one. I was like, and what is this show?
Well, Charlie's Angels was always a big one for me. And of course, Wonder Woman.
Yes.
Well, so because, you know, I really liked Linda Carter.
She's still so freaking beautiful. Like she's still like I mean, when you look back at, like, holy shit, I knew she was stunning, but you're like, oh my God, like so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there was the Bionic Man.
Steve Majors was the actor, right?
Yeah.
$6 Million Man.
Yeah. Yeah, but is the $6 Million Man the same as the Bionic Man, or are they different? Oh my God, I'm like totally losing my mind here. I don't know. Because there was, I think, was it Bionic? Now I don't know. Yes, Steve Majors? I'm not even sure.
I thought that was his name.
Yeah.
He was married to Farrah Fawcett, I think.
Yeah. and
for
who
a little
did,
before Ryan O'Neal. Yeah,
yeah, that marriage. Who didn't have her poster? Like every freaking my brother had her
I had
poster.
it.
Exactly. Everybody had, and I mean, it's not hard to. She was pretty, but that's not exactly what dudes were putting her poster. Or that particular poster wasn't about her face, which was beautiful, but it wasn't about her face. If I recall correctly, you could see the,
The,
but
the swimsuit one. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, but, yeah. So she's still with us, right? Farrah's still alive, isn't she?
No,
Oh,
no,
she
she's
is.
not.
I didn't
No.
even realize that because I know Ryan died recently.
Yeah, no, I think Farrah died a few years ago. Yeah,
Wow. I didn't, sorry, Farrah. I don't think I knew that, but rest
yeah.
in peace. Um, yeah, I guess we're gonna pivot to well, we can talk about boobs first because um Trump's lawyer, Alina Habba, that's how you say her name, I think. She was just
Habal, yeah.
interviewed and she was asked, you tell us, what was she asked about? What did she say?
Yeah, well, I learned definitely it was an hour-long interview. So imagine
Jeez.
listening to Alina Habba for an hour,
No,
I
thanks.
should get combat pay. But I didn't know her parents are from Baghdad, by the way. She's 100% Iraqi. I didn't think not many people knew that. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Because
I had a
aren't you Middle
feeling.
Eastern too? You're
Yeah,
like
I'm
Lebanese.
Lebanese, and I wondered
Yeah.
if her last name was Arabic, but
She
I did
said
not
she's
know.
100% Iraqi, going back thousands of years. So
Hmm,
yeah. Yeah. Her parents moved to the United States. So immigrants. Yeah.
interesting. Hmm.
But yeah, they asked her there was several funny parts, but most of it I had heard before. But these guys are pretty known for asking some crazy questions. These were the guys who asked DeSantis about his heels, and that was kind of clip went viral. So these guys will just ask people anything. They're pretty crazy, but they have a huge audience, so
Yeah.
that's why the people go on there, and they're right wing. And they asked her, do you think Trump, you being very attractive was one of the factors for Trump hiring you? Do you think that was one reason? And I thought she was going to like push back, and kind of say, no, I was an accomplished lawyer. But I mean, she pretty much agreed with the premise of the question. She's like, yeah, she said, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now if I wasn't attractive, if I didn't look the way I look. And I clearly caught his eye. And she mentioned that she was a member at Bedminster, and he noticed her, and that's how. And she owned it. She just basically said, "Yeah, you know, being good looking helps." And she said in her answer, one time somebody asked me, "Would you rather be smart or pretty?" And she said, "Oh, that's an easy question. I'd rather be pretty because you can always fake being smart."
Holy shit.
That's what she said. Yeah.
I mean, on one hand, it's like, oh God, that's so gross because it is so gross. And like, honest to God, I can't imagine answering that question that way. It's just, it's icky. But on the other hand, you're like, well, I guess of all of them, at least one of them is kind of being honest. I mean,
Right.
it's disgusting and like it's embarrassing to my gender, but like at least she's owning it. I mean, it's disgusting. I mean, I guess, she it looks like she's invested some money in her face and her, body. And I'm sure that a lot of that was very intentional to get maybe
Have you
where she
seen have you
wanted to
seen the
go.
old pictures of her from like 15 years ago?
No.
Yeah. It's like an Ivanka
Oh,
transformation. It's the
I'm not.
same. She looks completely different.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. And now I have to look for that because, I mean, knowing that you said that she's 100% Iraqi, and I'm like looking at her face and I'm like, hmm. But yeah. Yeah, it's sad. It is sad to me because it just perpetuates like all of this stereotypical shit about women needing to be eye candy and seen and not heard. And it's really sad. And it's not all surprising again that Donald Trump would have hired an attorney based on nothing but her tit size. You know what I'm like? And God knows what she would, God knows. And I'm not supposing anything, but I would guess God knows what she would do to get ahead. If it's like, well, this is what I'm selling to get an advantage.
Well, the right wingers go absolutely crazy when I do that. When I post pictures of them together and say like, on the road, and I
yeah,
say where's Melania, I point
right.
that out that Melania has not gone on a single campaign stop or road trip with Trump in 3 years.
Hmm.
And yet Habba goes everywhere with him, and she's, married with kids in Jersey. I think her husband and her kids are in Jersey, and
What?
I believe so.
I had no idea.
And
Oh, she
she's
was married,
and
had
she's
kids.
oh yeah, young kids. And she's constantly with Trump, 24/7. So it's very unusual. I mean, I posted the picture of her on her birthday when they flew back from, it was either Iowa or California, and
Yeah,
they got in at like midnight, and
yeah,
he had a birthday cake, and it was just the two of them sitting there, having her birthday cake alone in the dining room, and
yeah.
whenever I post things like that, the MAGA people go absolutely crazy. They come after me because
Why?
they
Because they want to
because they
perpetuate this idea that he's actually like a faithful
yeah,
family man.
they absolutely believe that him and Melania are just completely in love and have this incredible relationship and perfect marriage. And so whenever you suggest that that's not the case, they get really irate.
It's almost like you can't disturb that the bubble that they want to exist in, this bubble of fictional Trump. Like if you poke the bubble,
Yes.
they're like, "Ah, you can't touch that." Like that we need to believe all these things, they need to be intact, and we can't look at the truth. And like it's I was off camera, we were talking about this, about just all these lies. Like I really do believe that Trump could take a dump on a plate and put his name on it and say to them, this is 24 karat gold. And they would be like, oh, wow, look at this. Gold's so shiny. Like it's the weird, they will just believe whatever they want to believe. Like, I think he's going to spend, well, let's move to this because we're going to do a wrap up of 2023 and a look ahead 24. But this big story that broke today was that the House Democrats released a report sort of outlining just how much foreign money Donald Trump got from his properties while president, 5 point something million of which 7.8 million that we know about, 5 point something million of which was from China. Like but all of which violates the emoluments clause. But I digress because MAGA will see this somehow if they accept that it's real, which they're going to say he donated all the money to the Treasury, which is provable he didn't. But I actually see him spinning this and being like, actually, making money from foreign governments while president is a sign of strength, and it shows how smart I am. And they'll be like, yes, because he's now telling them that a good Dow is bad because it helps rich people and he's not rich. Did you post that clip where he was like, "Oh no, the a good Dow is bad."
Yes. Well, he's had two different takes on it. Okay. One take was, yes, rich people are now getting richer under Biden. And then I think that one really didn't play very well. And so now, yeah, his new spin on it is the stock market is only up because they all think I'm about to be back as president. So they all feel good about the future because they see the polls and they see I'm probably going to be president again. That's his new spin.
And
Yeah.
they probably know that he's now told them two different things, but they don't care. They're like, "Oh, that makes sense,"
Well,
or
three
"Oh,
different things
right,
because he's been saying the stock market was going to crash,
yes, right,
so there's been
right."
three different stories.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's like with the wall. He said, of course, he's been saying for however long it was, I'm going to build a great, beautiful wall, and who's going to pay for it? And everybody would scream, Mexico. And then, of course, Mexico didn't. And then he shut down the government to make our government pay for it. And then he ended up taking the money from our Defense Department. And now, because it's one of those things that all of us troll him on, all of us, all the time. Now he's gone from saying that he said that to he didn't say it. He said, I said part of the wall. And then he went from saying, I said part of the wall to saying, I knew Mexico was never going to pay for the wall. And now he's saying, actually, they gave us soldiers.
Yeah, that's the new take on the wall. Yeah, is part of his stump speech. Asen and I get to watch
Yeah.
every single Trump speech.
Oh God, I'm so
And
sorry.
so, sometimes this is very social media, centric here, but
Inside baseball, social media.
inside social media, but
Yeah.
Asen and I obviously talk all throughout the day, and I'm always like, man, are you gonna do Trump tonight, man? Because I can't do it, So we kind of like divide up, like, okay, I'll do the pastor speech, I'll do the anthem, you take Christy Nome, I'll jump on the first half of Trump, so we're kind of
Tag
like
team.
divvying it up just for
Yeah.
our own sanity, you know. But yeah, the new line now is, well, I got something better than the wall from Mexico. That's what he says now. I got 8,000 soldiers. I got them to put 8,000 soldiers along the border to keep everybody out. So that was even better than a wall, you know.
Well, okay, then if that's true, obviously it's not. But if that's true, then why do they keep saying that we're getting more migrants crossing the border than ever if Trump got these Mexican soldiers to keep the people from crossing the border? I
I
don't
mean,
understand that.
presumably they all went home. The
Oh,
soldiers, they're not there
it was
anymore.
it was only as long as Trump was president. Yeah.
Right. Only for Trump they did it.
Well, of
Yeah.
course, because he could solve, Middle East peace and the conflict in Ukraine in 24 hours. He would just say a little bit of this to one person and a little bit of that to the other, and it would be solved.
Well, he has to be dictator for a day to do it. But yes, and he
Just
would be able to do it.
one day, just one. Because everyone knows a totally normal thing
That's
that a
all he
presidential
needs.
candidate says is that they
Yeah.
will be a dictator, but only for one day.
Yeah. Dictators are well known for voluntarily giving up power. It's just it's something dictators do, right?
So they have
I
the
think Julius
self-control.
Caesar had to be stabbed 29 times before he gave up power.
Yeah,
But
and Donald Trump wasn't a dictator and wouldn't give
and
up power.
Mussolini was hung from the window of a hotel room, I think. So that's
Well,
usually what it takes,
yeah.
to get rid of a dictator.
But see, now this is another thing where MAGA's like, ooh, yes, that's what we need. We love America so much that we need someone who will break all the rules because the rules don't work, but just for one day and be a dictator because they don't know what that means. But they're like, sure, that sounds great. It's that cartoon of the sheep looking at the picture of the wolf and the wolf saying, I'm going to eat you. And the sheep are like, he really tells it like it is. And it's like, yes, a dictator will be great for us until they realize that not for them at all. They'll be working in like labor camps for their melted circus peanut messiah. Like it's not a dictatorship doesn't work for everybody, friends. It
In
doesn't work
fact,
for Mon MAGA.
in that Habba interview I just listened to today, they discussed this. They brought up a poll that showed that a huge majority of Republicans polled said they want an authoritarian leader, a strong man. And the numbers were like 78% or something. And so yeah, they were kind of like agreeing that that's what's needed, because they've conditioned their followers to these certain basic premises. MAGA gets conditioned at every rally, every speech, these certain themes. And the theme basically is these deep state evil people have taken over the government and control the government behind the scenes. And the reason why Trump really wasn't able to accomplish that much in his first term was because of these deep state actors. But he's got it all figured out now, and he knows who they are. He didn't know before, but he's got it all figured out now, and he knows he's going to get rid of all of them.
Mhm.
But a regular president with separation of powers and all that can't do that. So it's
Right.
going to take an authoritarian chosen by God, which is
Yeah.
Trump. That's
Right.
where the pastors come in, because the pastors get up at the beginning of the rallies and say, Trump has been chosen by God. So, it's okay to have an authoritarian because number one, it's desperately needed right now because everything is falling apart. And number two, God's chosen him, so we can trust him.
Yeah.
Right.
This time. Right. And he'll get the things done
Because we
he
can
didn't
trust
get.
God.
Yeah. Right.
Oh.
All of it is batshit insane, but the religious component will never cease to just completely like leave me gobsmacked. I don't understand it. I'll never understand it. I mean, something went viral today about him being devout or something like that. I forget who it was,
It was
but
a poll.
it's
Yeah,
like,
a poll.
I
A
mean,
poll showed that
that's it.
average people thought he was more religious than Biden. Yeah.
More religious than Romney. Yeah, than
Yeah.
Romney,
Yeah.
who's like
Romney.
a like
Romney. Yeah.
practicing Mormon. Yeah,
Among Republicans. Yeah. Yeah.
right. And the thing again, it's just like they'll believe anything. And back to that pile of shit that's gold. Like he doesn't even pretend to go to church. He golfs. I say worships every Sunday at Our Lady of the Perpetual Mulligan. Like that's what he does. And like Biden goes to church every single Sunday or as often as he can. And then they say that like Trump is devout and he's a thrice married serial philanderer who mocked a disabled guy and bragged about grabbing him by the pussy and incites violence at every turn. And they're like, Oh, but he's so godly. You ask him to cite one verse in the Bible, and he can't. He can't. But they're like, he's so, he loves God. What, what is it that they really think they're getting from him it, that makes them believe this stuff? The religious side, I don't understand that.
Well, when he put out that horrible Christmas message, where on Christmas he just trashed everybody, and it was
Yeah,
disgusting, right?
evil. Yeah.
So the day after, that prompted me to go back, because I was doing an article about Trump and religion, and his relationship, how he's handled religious questions when they get asked of him, Bible questions. So I went back to pull all these old clips, and I started watching all these Christian Broadcast Network interviews from 15 and 16 with Trump that I had never seen before. And I don't think most people had seen them, other than, the evangelicals that they were targeting. And it was so different what these same people, because I see these same pastors now, what these same pastors were saying back then when they were selling Trump to their flock is so different from now. It's a completely different message. And I wrote an article about this where I showed the side-by-side comparison, because back then what they were saying is, okay, we know Trump's not one of us. We know he's not a Christian. We know, he doesn't read the Bible. We get it. But, there's definitely going to be 2 Supreme Court justices coming open, maybe 3. And they were saying this back then. And he's promised to give us 3 pro-life justices, all pro-life justices. So that was number 1. And number 2, he's promised to repeal the Johnson Amendment, which is the amendment that gives churches tax exempt status as long as they don't participate in religious activities or endorse candidates. He promised to repeal that. So they basically said he's not one of us back then, but he's going to do these 2 things that we really want. So we got to kind of make this deal with the devil kind of deal,
Yeah.
And by the way, he never repealed the Johnson Amendment. Although
Shocker.
he gave them their justices,
Yeah.
So now
Thanks, Mitch McConnell.
those same people, you listen to him today, it's nothing. Now it's like he's chosen by God. God, he's God's anointed one. These same people.
I mean, I guess they don't even really, it doesn't matter because they don't even believe their own shit, but also like there's so much suspension of disbelief and like cognitive dissonance and all the things like that. It's just like it's as if they don't even know what they said yesterday, what he said yesterday. Nobody cares. It's just what fits right now in this moment, whatever that is, for whatever purposes we think we need. Like Mike Johnson truly, as far as I've understood, believes that the rapture is literally coming. And like, so anything he does in any end for any reason will be forgiven because his sins will be absolved. So he could have tried to overthrow an election for Donald Trump and it doesn't matter. He's an extreme case, an extreme like example, but it's a very, very strange reality of the stuff that they're willing to just overlook and the fiction that they're willing to accept. Because you look at it and you're like, how do they not see it? But it's become so much more cult-like in the last 4 years than it was. And he's leaned so hard into that.
Yeah.
I saw a poll today that not just MAGA, but like a quarter of Americans believe that January 6th was an inside job, was perpetrated by the deep state or the FBI. 11% of that, quarter actually truly believe it. The quarter thinks it's possible of all of Americans. So it's not, it's permeating all the different levels of society, not just that cult. And that's really scary. Like, I think the number of the people in America who think Trump was responsible for January 6th has continued to slide. It's somewhere hovering not far above 50% at this point, because it's like, you're a student of history. We see this degradation of the truth and this whitewashing of facts and this rewriting of history. And I don't know if it's, who said it, because misattributed quote all the time, but like, if you tell a lie, tell it, make it a big one and tell it, repeat it often kind of thing. That's what's happening. That's what we're seeing.
You know who actually is more susceptible to that kind of stuff, I have noticed a lot last year, is actually people who aren't on political social media.
Hmm.
but are on social media for non-politics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that those of us who are on social media primarily for politics get pretty thick skin and get very skeptical, and we question everything that's presented, every video, every photo, every clip. Is that photoshopped, is that fake?
Yeah.
Because we're just used to that nonsense,
Yeah.
so we scrutinize everything and we don't fall for everything very easily. But on their team, they're very set on what they believe in, and so are we.
Mm-hmm.
But it's those other people that, when that disinformation stuff kind of filters out into people who are into sports or fashion or whatever their social media genre is, sometimes our stuff gets into their world, and they don't have those tools to kind of figure out, oh, that's fake, or
Mm-hmm.
that's from Russia,
Right.
they're not savvy enough, so they just buy it. And I think that that's where some of these polls come in. It's those people. It's really the non-political savvy people that are having this stuff hit them in different places.
I mean, I've had, to your point, I've had peers of mine who are not really dialed in. They're certainly not as much as I am, but then again, very few people are like us in that regard. But they'll say, like, just in passing, like, oh, Joe Biden's really senile, right? Like, he's not really running the show. And it's like, where did you hear that? Like, why would you say that? And I think a lot of, I know right-wing media, and I know that they really drive that hard, which is a kind of funny thing because they also simultaneously will say that he's the mastermind of, 91 criminal charges and 4 indictments and business fraud and
Shell
sexual abuse.
companies, yeah.
Right. Somehow he's simultaneously doing all of that while being so senile he can't tie his own shoes. But that message got through to the people who aren't paying attention, and they're like, I don't really know if I want to vote for a senile old guy. And they're like looking at Trump. Like, what are you talking about? The guy,
Yeah, and I
he's an
could tell you
idiot.
that people bust on me for doing things like on DeSantis's heels and things like that, but those are the kind of things that get to those people.
Yeah.
And those crossover. That's why I love like tweets about music or fashion or something like that, because I know that's going to get into those ecosystems that are not political social media. And that just happened to me on that clip with Laura Trump, where she was criticizing Green Day,
Mm.
and that clip kind of fizzled out on political social media. And then 24 hours later, somebody must have tweeted it, a band, maybe it was even Green Day. I didn't look, but it just went really viral with all these music people.
Huh.
And so that's what I mean. It's clips like that. So when you're talking about Biden, it's when they do, like, the right wingers do all the doctored stuff, or they're splicing things and they're putting them together in a montage of him like tripping or turning around, acting like he doesn't know where to go, and they're very deceptively edited. And
Hmm.
those get into those other ecosystems and they see them, and
Right.
people go, oh yeah, he's lost it.
Right, and that's a big message that like they really lean hard into that because it's effective, and it's crazy to me that it's effective because you have to sort of like just ignore the fact that the guy that's very likely going to be running against him might really be in the throes of dementia,
Yeah.
and doesn't sometimes he goes so off script, but he looks at eclipses with the naked eye. He says the wrong town name. Can't remember his own son's name, or when asked to describe his son, he says he's tall. But like, it's just crazy to me that people just don't make. And he's only a few years younger, but they can criticize Biden for being too old, but Trump somehow is not. It's again, makes you really scratch your head, and it's messaging, and then depending on what people are susceptible to, but it's really crazy. And
No,
Lara
and
Trump, ugh.
we got marching orders from Ben and Brett, at Midas, that several months ago, that they wanted us to turn the tables on Trump on that, and they wanted me and Asen specifically to look for any gaffe, any mispronunciation, any date he got wrong. And then we started doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they've been doing to Biden, for years.
Yeah.
And no Democrat has ever really done that back to Trump. And so we made a conscious effort of that between our team. And so all the stuff that you've seen of him, like mixing up Obama, or, mixing up dates or places or countries, Budapest or Hungary, on the
Yeah.
border of Ukraine, that all came from us because Ben and Brett basically asked us to do that. And I think that's been really effective in countering that, the Biden stuff.
I agree, and I don't know why we don't do that more on our side. I mean, I know you and I do, and I know, Midas does a lot, and I think that, people are like, well, when two pigs are in the mud, the pig's loud or something, everybody comes out 30. I'm like, well, you and I talked about this a lot. I do
Yeah.
believe that there's some value in going right back at them where they are. We don't need to go high just because they go low all the time. I mean, we can still be the grown-ups in the room all being like, okay, you're going to go this way. We're going to meet you there because I got pound for pound. Let's do this. You know what I mean? I've got enough in my arsenal to go right back at you, if not more so. Like this idea that Trump is fit, where Biden is meek and weak. And it's like, have you ever, they went after Biden for not having a shirt on the beach and like how he was old and frail. And it's like, have you ever once seen Donald Trump without a shirt on?
You can't. I've seen more Trump photos than maybe anybody.
Yeah.
I've never seen one with him with his shirt off,
You posted a
or even
video.
in a t-shirt.
Yeah, right. You posted a video of him getting off of his golf cart, which is his version of exercise, and he like lumbers over to these people, and I said even for him he looks like shit. He just like looks like a beluga whale, and I'm not fat shaming him, but it's just I mean by squishiness in general, like his neck, it's all just one like heap of gelatin, and he like lumbers over a little bit and he looks really unsteady on his feet, and he's just saggy and old looking and like not all together there.
That's
And
why That's why, by the way, I follow so many of the golf course people that work at his golf courses.
yeah.
That people ask me where I get a lot of the golf stuff. I follow his employees,
Oh my
like his
God.
caddies and stuff.
Oh my God.
They don't even know it, but I'm like on Instagram following like people that work in the pro shop at Doral. And I'm only doing that for this purpose.
Right.
But the reason why the golf course stuff is so good is because he doesn't have his makeup on, he doesn't have his girdle, he doesn't have his lifts in his shoes. So he has to kind of wear normal. That's like how he really looks
Yeah.
for the most part,
Yeah, and they'll catch those pictures of him eating at like the buffet line or something. It's always just like so cringeworthy. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there's a value to going back at them when they go after these ridiculous things. And same thing, you can take this up, you can even like go up a notch or two and do it on policy, where it's like they're like, oh, Trump was the jobs president. And you're like, actually, here's some facts. Like Trump was the GDP president. Actually, well, here's some facts. And then of course they always go, well, that was the
that
pandemic
that
that the deep state unleashed on the country so that
they
they
use
have
that
really
as the excuse for everything. Yeah.
everything. So many long games that the Democrats have been playing, so long that they were able to launch investigations into Trump before he ever even announced that he was going to be seeking election in 2024. They were so calculating, he's playing so much 4D chess that Letitia James and everybody else in New York knew that if they launched those investigations long before he announced that they could derail his presidency 3 years later, 4 years later. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Sure.
And the business fraud case in New York's been going on forever, like
You know,
long.
what's interesting though is like Trump and MAGA will always try and ignore the final year, like redact out 2020 and not count that in his
Yeah.
economic record
Right.
and chalk it up to the pandemic. But they will never take into account that Biden's first year was even worse, like for everything being a mess,
Yeah.
supply chain and all of that, things shut down. So, but they'll never sort of they won't back out 2021 from Biden's economic record.
Mm-mm.
That counts,
Right.
What he inherited counts, but the Trump's last year doesn't count because of the pandemic.
And it doesn't count that he inherited Obama's economy. Like it doesn't.
Right. Oh, that too.
Right.
And the pandemic was worse in 2021 than it was in 2020, by the way, if you look at all the numbers.
And if you look at the numbers, there were downtrends in manufacturing jobs. There were downtrends in jobs in general. There were downtrends in economic numbers before the pandemic, largely
That's
because
right.
of Trump's mismanagement, but also in terms of the economy. That tax cut that he gave to the ultra rich and corporations has done a doozy on our economy that MAGA will never admit. But I mean, it saddled us with so much debt that our grandkids will be paying for it, but they don't want to talk about that. They want to just give them more tax cuts. It's so
But
selective.
the MAGA mythology that they repeat over and over again, the mantra was it was the greatest economy in the history of the world. Trump has repeated that line 10,000 times. It was the great the mythology is it was better than it's ever been. It was the greatest ever. Then this pandemic happened. Everything fell apart. That's why I lost. And then every, it's all horrible, and now I'll bring it back to where it was before. That's the mythology.
And I've often asked them, and they don't ever answer me really, but I know that they won't, because the truth is as useful to Mega as like a thesaurus and a toothbrush. But I've asked them, what did he do for you? What did he do for you? Tell me. Like, here's the things he promised. He promised to build the wall. Mexico paid for it. Didn't happen. He promised to, end the opioid crisis, bring back coal, all of the things. Infrastructure Week was a running joke for 4 years. Never happened. He never repealed and replaced Obamacare. And he's flip-flopped his story on that, by the way, too, where now it's like Biden, I mean, not Biden, McCain somehow is responsible.
They'll talk about gas prices.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what they'll talk about, and inflation. I could, buy my Big Mac with cheese for $4 and now it's $5, something like that. But
right. And you can't talk to them about facts about how this is global. You can't
it's
talk to them
global. Yeah,
about,
exactly.
or about the fact that our recovery is stronger under Biden than it was under previous administrations. Like, you can't talk to them about that because it's not useful to them. It's not.
No.
All
they know is this costs X when Trump was president. Now it costs Y. Bring Trump back.
Right. Right.
Trump
And
2024.
it is. It's so.
I mean,
it is mythological.
That's what they say.
Yeah. And I love what you said before earlier about them, like, oh, the reason he didn't get anything accomplished was because the deep state kept interrupting him. And it's like, no, he had the Senate, the House,
He
and the
kept
White
firing
House.
everybody.
Right.
He couldn't
And
keep anybody in his staff.
seriously, and well, we could talk about what a return to the White House would look like, because he wouldn't have anyone to have guardrails on him for any reason whatsoever. But like, that's terrifying. I mean, he did have adults in the room, but they were still basically giving him whatever he wanted, his wish list. He just didn't know how far he could go yet, I think. He was like, oh, so I can't shoot migrants in the legs? No. Moats with alligators? Oh, no, okay. Can't gut the VA completely? Okay. Like, now those guardrails are gone. Like, nothing would prevent him from doing whatever disgusting thing he wanted to do, which would include not leaving office ever.
Yeah. He just gave an edict to all of them to stop talking about what jobs they're going to have, because he got really pissed off after Bannon said that Kash Patel was going to be the CIA director. And that made, I posted the clip and it went viral and made national news, because I forget what Kash said he was going to do as CIA director, but it wasn't very good.
Shocker.
And and so Trump threw down the gauntlet, because somebody else like Don Jr. or something was in an interview a few days later, and he said, Dad told we're not allowed to talk about anybody who might get any position. They said he's put out the edict that if you start going on a Bannon show and talking about you're going to be Secretary of Defense, you're not getting anything.
Right.
But we know who they are, because they were all talking about it, like Mike Flynn. They'll say, like, Trump promised me I'm going to be here. We know it's going to be Mike Flynn. We know it's Stephen Miller, Jason Miller, obviously. We know who's going to be in these cabinet positions. We could go, one by one. It's pretty obvious. Rick Grinnell, will be. It's all the absolute worst, misfit, horrible people that were left over, at the end. But, the other interesting thing to me has been how all of his former cabinet members all hate each other now. They're constantly bad mouthing each other and trashing each other. And it's just, what a dysfunctional crew they had.
And they're unabashedly trashing him too, while rewriting their own history and role in some of the things that he did. Let's just take Barr, for example, even Bolton. I mean, they'll go after each other. They'll clearly go after Trump, and then they'll act like they were somehow, offended by the things that they enabled and emboldened at the same time.
Yeah.
Really weird.
Like they weren't part of it,
Yeah. It's like when Paul Ryan did that, and I think you posted that clip too, but that interview with Paul Ryan, that was up, I think, the other day, where the interviewer asks him, like, what's wrong with the Republican Party? And he said, I'll give you two-word answer, Donald Trump. And it's like, did I say Paul Ryan? I meant Paul Ryan. If I didn't say Paul Ryan,
Yeah,
my
you did.
brain was
Yeah.
thinking it. And my response to that, like a lot of people's response to that was, you made him.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I thought for sure, I am naive enough to think that I was naive enough to think that after the Access Hollywood tape, I thought Paul Ryan had said privately, like, that's it, I'm not supporting him anymore. I actually thought he was going to stick with that. I'm a fool, because we know that that didn't happen. He was as shocked as anybody that Trump won. But, all of those years of sort of like hiding behind Trump, like he was, in front of them like Frankenstein so they could do all this terrible shit behind the scenes, enabled him to be exactly who we see today. And
Right.
it's like they kept hand feeding this rabid animal raw meat, and then their animal bit them on the hand, and they were like, why did that animal bite me? How did that happen? It's like, Paul Ryan, you did this, and then you cut and run. Like,
Well, that's why I say, like, me switching parties. People sometimes say, well, did you switch because of Trump? And I've said, no, just Trump being president or leader of the party for a while would not have caused me to not be a Republican after 30 years of being active in the party.
yeah.
It was the fact that so many other of the party leaders went along with it. That's the reason why I left. That's what disillusioned me more. It wasn't that one person was able to acquire power. It was that so many people I thought I knew and respected, gave into it. And I knew that they couldn't stand him. I
Yeah.
knew they didn't like him. But, they're up there acting like they did. And that really, like, turned my stomach and said, I can't be part of this anymore.
I mean, from an outsider perspective, looking at the Republican Party at the time, growing up as the daughter of a Republican who changed, thanks to George W. Bush, to a Democrat, I was expecting naively and foolishly that those establishment Republicans, that the leadership, that the cooler heads in the party that were still there at the time, I thought that they would stand up and reject it every time. Every time. I was like, no, this will be too far. No, they can't. He attacked McCain. No, they'll stand up for McCain. No, like every single time I didn't see the tweet, or you'll have to ask him about
Yeah.
that, you know? And then that's, for me, like the chef's kiss was when McConnell had the chance to basically whip his party into convicting Trump in the second impeachment, because he said he thought he was responsible for January 6th, but then he voted not to convict him, and then said, really passing the buck, that it would be up to the courts to decide Donald Trump's fate related to January 6th. And when you look back at that now and you see where we are now and you know what we're facing
In the
now.
courts. Yeah. What exactly what Mitch said we should do, right?
Right. And now it's like, how dare they? How
Right.
dare they go to the courts? This is
Yeah.
supposed to be up to the people.
Yeah, you're right. And I remember, Mitch, we didn't know how he was going to vote. He didn't say anything until I want to say it was like the day before
Yeah.
he got up and gave his speech on the floor of that he was going to vote to acquit. But up until that point, I think a lot of us thought he was going to convict Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought there was at least 50-50 chance,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that he doesn't like Trump and I know Trump doesn't like him.
And
So
Trump
I
had
figured,
attacked him plenty by then.
and I figured, he's old, he's in his last term. What does he give a shit, But, I guess he's he's an old school Republican and he backed his guy, I guess.
Right. Which, again, is just such moral cowardice. It's like, I mean, there were, I forget how many votes to convict in that second impeachment.
I think it was like 60. I think it was like 60. 50.
Yes, we got like what, 8? Or how many Republicans did we get? I can't
We
remember.
only needed like 7 or 8 more. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it was close. It wasn't that far off.
Right? It was, yeah, and it was shocking because I think that was the first time, other than his first impeachment, that the same party had voted to convict. And honestly, I would be so curious to see what history would have looked like if Mitch had said, all right, guys, I'm going to vote to convict him in this impeachment. And what they would have done, I feel like they would have, most of them, not the Ted Cruz's probably, and not the Marco Rubios, but
Right.
the rest of them, I feel like a lot more of them would have fallen in line and gone along with it, and they would have prevented all of this, everything we're facing now related
Mitch
to him.
definitely has, sway over like 10 or 12 senators for sure. I mean,
Yeah,
they go with him every time on just about everything. So,
yeah,
yeah, he very well might have pulled some of them along, and those are the old school, the ones we'd never see on TV, by the
right.
way. The
Yeah.
ones who only care about their portfolios and bringing as much money back to their state as they can.
Right. They're not there to
No,
like the
to be
Ted
on
Cruz's.
on Fox. No.
Exactly. And that's so so real quick, and I know I've got you over a long time, but the thing about the Republican Party now, what I wrote about the other day is that if there ever was any doubt that the Republican Party, your grandfather's Republican Party, was long gone and dead, this new iteration of the Republican Party has sealed it. This is MAGA. This is the party of Trump. This is also the party of me, because they don't even give a shit about, half of them don't even care about Trump or anything. It's, I want to get on TV. I want to sell my books. I want to be famous. I mean, Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, take your pick. It's all about me. Maybe for Marjorie, it's also about Trump. But this is not a Republican Party that resembles the party of Lincoln. It's not even a Republican Party that resembles the Republican Party of 2000. I don't know,
Of
2000.
Reagan. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's MAGA now. And
Yeah.
they all voted to impeach for the impeachment inquiry. They all voted for Mike Johnson. The whole entire conference, they fell in line.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how it's completely the party of Trump, but you're right. I mean, so many of these people are just going there to, run their businesses or make their brand,
Yeah.
or to, become a Fox or a Newsmax host. Yeah, it's really unbelievable that the performance artist one. It's the ones that you never hear about, the ones that don't post anything on Twitter, that are actually the most effective, that
Hmm.
they're focused on bringing money and good things back to their district, and they're not on Fox.
No.
They actually, in both parties, actually do care about that.
Yeah.
But the new crew, and the common theme among that crew that wants to be on TV and everything, is the districts they're in are heavily gerrymandered, and they're all like plus 25, plus 30 districts where
They're
they
so
can't
safe.
lose.
Right.
So they don't need to keep their constituents happy,
Yeah.
because they're not going to lose no matter what.
Yeah, and I think they redrew Nancy Mace's district because she used to be in a lot more trouble than she is now. And what we've seen now with Chester Prynne, is what I call her, thanks to her Scarlet Letter, is that she was one of the mutineers. I mean, she's gone pretty much full ultra mega now, because right, they redrew her district. I think she's not
Well,
in.
but she's got to worry because that's being litigated, and it's looking very likely that her district is going to have to be redrawn again here any time now.
Oh no.
And because they moved like 40,000 black voters out of her district. And
Oh,
so that was challenged, civil rights stuff.
yeah.
And yeah, that made her district like a R+1 or 2 district to like an R+8 or 9.
Hmm.
So that's when she felt safe to go full MAGA.
Mm-hmm.
But now, that's I think it's in front of like the North Carolina Supreme Court, and they're
Oh,
thinking there's a good chance that they might move those voters back into her district. So, after she's gone full MAGA, her district becomes 50-50, and she gets 40,000 black people in it.
that's right. Well, boy, would I hate to see that backfire on old Nancy.
Yeah.
Boy, would I hate to see that happen. Yeah, I
What
mean,
infuriates me is when she talks about abortion, because she's such a fraud.
yeah.
We know she's pro-choice, but she lies. I mean, it's obvious she's pro-choice, okay?
Hmm.
But she lies and claims she's pro-life. And when she and but she's supposed to be like the conscience of the Republic, or the whisperer to the Republican Party on abortion. And this
Hmm.
is how she casts herself on all women's issues, right?
Yeah.
Like she's the one who's going to teach the alpha males how to get suburban women voters.
Hmm.
Elise Stefanik is another one who does that.
Yeah. Oh
You know?
God.
but she's like the new Elise. So Mace's thing on abortion is you're just not talking about it right. You got to sell it the right way. It's the way you package it.
Uh-huh.
So in other words, what she's saying is like it's so cynical. It's like we're gonna totally be against abortion, but we're gonna pretend like we're not. You know, it's
And
crazy.
well, and it's so foolish and disingenuous to believe, as we've seen in Virginia now, that you can convince Americans, particularly American women, that but there's a reasonable way to take your rights away. Like we don't want. I know that seems really extreme. That other way that we're going to strip your rights, where like you can actually die in the parking lot of the hospital because you have sepsis, and we're going to refuse to give you an abortion, like the Fifth Circuit basically just decided in Texas. But Virginia was selling what they thought was a Alexa, stop. No, don't interrupt my podcast. They thought Alexa, stop. My God, I hate technology sometimes. They were selling a reasonable abortion ban. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. They keep finding out that there's no messaging on this that is palatable, that includes regulating my uterus. Like Nancy Mace doesn't have the answer. Nikki Haley doesn't have the answer. Glenn Youngkin didn't have the answer because there's no answer. And they
Well,
just don't seem to get it.
and
They
here's
keep
why
losing.
here's why they're handcuffed on this. And Trump is looking for a way to do this too. In other words, try and act like he's reasonable on abortion. Is their base. Their
Yeah.
base believes that life begins at conception and abortion is murder. So it's cut and dry for them. So
Mhm.
when these politicians start talking about 9 weeks, 15 weeks, these people are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
murder is murder. It
Right.
doesn't matter what week. And so that's why these Republican politicians are in a box, because
Mhm.
they want to find a way to kind of sell it to the moderate women voter, but at the same time, their bases won't have it, won't let them.
And they're handcuffed to the base. It's only going to take them so far. It's not going to win them the big
No, it's
elections. It
not.
doesn't, right. It doesn't play on a big, which is why there's this race against time for them to steal as much and gerrymander as much and cheat as much as possible, because like they just know that they're handcuffed to an ideology that doesn't sell on in a national or state level, for that matter. I mean, we just saw a huge referendum on all this shit in November, not just in Ohio on issue one, but in states like Idaho and even here in New Jersey, where they were like, we don't want this crazy extremism. Actually, this is not palatable to us. We would like to have some competency and a lot less chaos. And they keep needing the chaos to they need to trump that base so that they keep feeding the chaos, and it just keeps undermining their electability beyond that. They did. So what are they going to do? I mean, they don't really have much of a choice other than to cheat. Is what they can do
Just to
out of
lie.
this.
I mean, to lie. I mean, Ronna McDaniel's talking points on abortion is just, and Trump too, is every time you get asked a question about abortion, just talk about the late term.
Yeah,
Democrats want abortion up until after birth.
until they're 18.
I mean, Trump gets up at his rallies and tells people this is how you need to answer the question. As soon as you get asked about 15 weeks or 9 weeks, you just start talking about Democrats want to kill babies after, the day they're born.
Right. Or
And
like,
that's their plan,
yeah, doesn't have to be reflective of reality. And again, anybody with one single like semi-firing synapse would be like, no, because that's murder.
Yeah.
Like,
Like,
doesn't actually work like
I
that.
mean, how much does that happen? That's like 0.001% of abortions is, in the
Yeah.
at the ninth month. And that's only because one of the two is going to die
Right.
or already has died.
Right. Right. And yeah. And
Yeah.
I could go on all day about that Fifth Circuit decision in Texas where it's like, well, no, actually
Yeah.
they can refuse to give life-saving care if it includes an abortion, because that's mandating an abortion, which it's just mandating medical care, which I thought was like in their Hippocratic oath or whatever, that they couldn't deny care. Like if it would save a life, or I don't know. But that is likely going to end up before the Supreme Court in an election year, which should be very interesting and not at all advantageous for MAGA, I would assume, and neither will the Mifepristone case. But I think Republicans are shackled to this issue forever.
We're the dog that caught the car.
Right.
I said for decades, I said before Roe was overturned, that Republicans like the idea of fighting against Roe and complaining about Roe, but they don't really want it overturned. And I said this in the 80s and 90s, and the reason is because they could fundraise the hell out of it. We're going to get Roe overturned before, they could yell and scream about it, but there was no negative consequences. Like,
Right.
because abortion, no, everybody took it for granted that
Right.
it was a constitutional right. So
I
just
did.
because some Republican is out there saying I'm against abortion, it didn't matter to any voter, because on the center or the left, because, well, it's a constitutional right. So what if you don't agree with it? Well, who cares? But now it does matter,
Yeah.
when they say that. So they're they're not fundraising off it anymore, because who's fundraising off it? Democrat. It flipped.
Yeah.
It used to be Democrats raised no money off the pro-choice issue because it was already the law.
We were good.
Republicans raised all the money on abortion. Now it's reversed. Republicans can't raise any money on abortion now because they got their way, and Democrats are, raking it in.
Well, yeah, and 7 out of 7 states that put this on their ballot, they were like, "Oh yeah, no, we would like to have that, please." I think there's some polls out that, like, in terms of motivating voters going into 24, which is crazy to me. It's like democracy is one of the big issues, if not the biggest issue, maybe second, actually. I'm not sure. And abortion, Roe, Dobbs, that's right there at the top of what is motivating people to vote. And that when they're voting on those two issues, they're not voting for Republicans. So that does not bode well for them. But like, they don't have any messages, period, really. So they certainly don't have anything that they're offering the American people. They don't have any platforms where they're like, other than gas stoves and like shooting beer. I don't know what they're offering, because
The
they're not
border,
offering tax cuts.
close the border and deport migrants.
Right.
That's their number one thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And you talked about, and we'll get into this another time, because you know what, you have a very reasonable approach to the conversation about the border, and I don't think that playing, like, sticking our heads in the sand and playing dumb as if it's not happening at all is the right strategy either. So there's some fine line to walk there on not giving them exactly all of the boogeyman like craziness as they want, but also being like, no, okay, this, I mean, even the governor of Arizona is like, look, we got to do something. You know what I mean? She's a Democrat. So you obviously believe that we should be talking about that more, and there's probably a reasonable way to be doing that. The administration should be doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think you have to counter message. You have to see, I think the fundamental weakness of the Biden administration is they're very good on policy, but they don't, I think the way that they understand it is like their job is over when the bill is signed into law.
Yeah.
And in a democracy, you have to keep going. In other words, like, all the work that you did to craft the legislation, to get it passed, to line up the votes, sign it into law, yay, hooray, and then you're on to the next. But in a democracy, what you then have to do is go out into the American people on TV with your crew and sell it, sell it. This is what the infrastructure bill is doing today.
Yeah.
Here we are, a new factory in Colorado. Guess what we did over here with the infrastructure bill? Republicans do that stuff. Okay.
They
but
take credit for the bills they didn't vote for.
administration didn't do that. They didn't. They maybe because they had such an ambitious agenda that it was always, okay, we finished that, we got to go do this now. And it was always something on their plate.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I really feel like they didn't sell their agenda to the people because they didn't think that they had to. I think that they felt like the people will see the work and they'll love it.
Yeah.
And they'll validate it. We don't need to sell it because it's so good.
Right.
That's the way I felt.
Well, Jessica Tarlov said on Fox yesterday, just, all the great things. And what did Jesse and everybody else say? Well, Biden's not talking about, record oil production. And that was their criticism, which is interesting because, like, they're not wrong. They didn't say that she was wrong. They just said he's not talking about it, which is very interesting because I hear you on that. And I think what I hear, understand.
Let me give you a border example from yesterday. KJP, she says, a Fox asked her a question. How many people have been deported in the last, whatever year or whatever? How many people have actually been deported? And she said 610,000 people, like, in the last 9 months have been deported. And the Fox host was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "What? Like,
Yeah.
why aren't I didn't know that.
Me
Like,
either.
I had no idea we deported that many people. I
Me
thought we're
either.
just according, we're just letting everybody in, we're not
Mm-hmm.
sending anybody back.
Right.
So I thought, well, how is it possible that this is the first time I've heard that number, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Sometimes I think on that issue and on the oil issue that I think they're afraid that those messages will backfire.
Ah, with the left.
Right.
Yes.
Be
You hit
which
it
is
then.
but
Yeah.
that's a calculation you can't really be making if you want to be selling to the middle. And the middle is where the elections are decided. I really do believe that the independents are if they're hearing the messages, they're like, that seems pretty reasonable. Oh, they're deporting 600,000 people. I didn't know that. Meanwhile, the left is like, what? And
Yes.
meanwhile, yeah,
That's why I need people like you, Joe, is because you understand the thinking of the left better than I do. you know, I understand the right, and I can communicate that to people on the left, but it didn't occur to me that that's why they wouldn't say that, and it makes perfect sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear all the time from the left, that Biden isn't doing enough to combat like drilling and stuff all the time from the
Yes.
left, that he's not doing enough on
So
climate.
why would
And
he be bragging about how much we're drilling?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is right, which is why it comes up on Fox News, not CNN.
You helped me today. That
Uh,
I'm gonna start being conscious of that.
Well,
Yeah.
it is interesting because he's trying really hard to sell the truth about how he is the first president in decades to get big pharma to negotiate prices. And now we've got $35 insulin. And every president since basically before Obama, I don't even know how long back this goes, has been trying to do this. He did it. And then CNN goes out and says, well, big pharma decided that they were going to lower prices because if they didn't, and it's like, no, you didn't even say Biden. So sometimes it's not just that he's not messaging for specific reasons. Sometimes we're getting an assist once again from mainstream media who likes to put their thumb on the scale because we all know what's beneficial to them, and that's conflict and chaos and
Right.
dysfunction. Yeah, much like MAGA. Okay. We got a lot through. We talked about a lot. We didn't necessarily do the thing because I'm so disorganized. We didn't go back and do the 2023 recap, 2024 look ahead, although we did it in many different ways. That is a conversation we can have anytime. We all know what happened last year. It was nuts. So we'll just move on to the totally random rapid fire question round if you're ready for that.
All right.
Okay. Um, okay. Question one. You often talk about who you think will be Trump's VP pick, which is just absurd to even say because it's like, ugh, how can he even be in that position? But you often talk about it being Elise Stefanik or Kristi Noem.
Right.
So my question is, which one of them wins in a pudding wrestling match?
Oh. Ooh.
Noem or Stefanik?
No, I was gonna originally say Stefanik because I think she's bigger and stronger,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna say Gnome because Gnome, like, she's very athletic and does like rodeo and horse riding and
Yes.
shooting, and
Yeah.
I'm constantly seeing her. I'm on her Instagram.
Oh God. Yeah. And
So
she
I'm
rides
always seeing,
Corey
but
all the time.
she's really very athletic. So I'm
Yep.
gonna say Gnome. Yeah.
Okay. Did you hear what I said? She also rides Corey all the time.
Oh, yes. Well, yes, she
Yeah.
did. And yeah, that's true.
But if she ends up his VP, she and Corey can work together for,
I thought, I mean, Trump fired Corey because, the reason why he fired Corey, by the way, is because Corey was hitting on Trump's hot female staffers.
yeah.
And you don't pee in Trump's pool, right?
Yeah.
Those
Hmm.
are his
Unless you
chicks,
are a
man.
Russian hooker. Yeah.
Yeah, those are, so that's where Corey screwed up, was he was messing around with women that were close to Trump, and he
What's her name? What
he
was
got
that
rid of him.
brunette's
But
name?
yeah, so I know they were completely on the outs for like 2 years, but I have heard that he's maybe worming his way back in.
I've heard that too, actually. And
Yeah.
maybe Christie is the conduit for that. Maybe she's doing Mount Rushmore's with Corey's face and Trump's face on them so that he can get used to the idea of them working together. Oh, it's also weird. I do also think that she would beat her. I think Stefanik is probably just a big old baby. He would be like, my I broke a nail. I don't know. And we wouldn't know if Christy was mad because her face doesn't move anymore.
Right.
Cool. Yeah. Which is why she made a
I will
funny.
say that MAGA world believes it's going to be gnome. They're pretty strong consensus. They think it's going to be gnome. I'm Stefanik. Nobody's on Stefanik except me. Like I'm the only one who thinks Stefanik.
I don't think she appeals to them. I really don't think that
Right.
she's not. Look, this is to quote Alina, she doesn't look the part, you
You know
know?
what? When they bring up Huckabee, they all laugh all the time, and it's the same response. They're all like,
Mhm.
"No, she doesn't look the part for Trump." You
Right.
know, like
No.
he's ruled out immediately because of her looks.
Eh,
Yeah.
because this is the standard this is the standard they expect. So, and Stefanik is also just generally dislikable, and she's just got that resting kind of like, I smell a fart face. I don't know. She's very off-putting to me. Okay. Uh, Speaking of being off-putting. Okay, number two, if you had to spend a year, this is not political. If you, it could be though. If you had to spend a year on a desert island, but you got to bring one comfort item and one celebrity or athlete or politician, what would the item be and who would the person be?
Comfort item like a
Yeah, like
pillow.
anything. Comfort, I guess I mean like just any luxury item, any one thing that you feel like you would need for an entire year on a desert island.
Yeah.
You
A
can't say a
a,
boat.
a fishing rod, a way to get off.
Yeah.
My phone,
Yeah.
right? No.
But then,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, that's a good question. I mean, because I definitely would like, I like to listen to audiobooks, so I definitely would like to be able to have something that could at least play a audiobook. Like,
Yeah. And
you
a
know,
charger. Yeah. So that you could,
yeah, I guess you
yeah.
need something like that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And you
I
get
think
one
if I
person,
had enough audiobooks, I could be perfectly happy on an island for 20 years or so.
really. But you have to be, you're shackled to, not shackled, but you got a celebrity or like an athlete or somebody with you.
Oh, I get that too.
Yeah. You have to pick one item and one celebrity or athlete or politician or famous person. Alive famous person.
Yeah, I'll do somebody like Scarlett Johansson or something. I mean, if
My
I got to
son,
be on an island,
yeah, my son would pick her too. I'm
you're
sure of it.
gonna have to have something to do, right?
Yeah. She's, yeah, that'll offset those audiobook hours for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't need. Actually, I wouldn't need the audiobook.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just a big bottle of suntan lotion you could apply
yeah,
to,
right.
to Scarlett Johansson all year long. Yeah, my son and I got into a debate about who was more attractive, which is this is what we talk about because he's 14, Scarlett Johansson or Mariah Carey. This is what we talk about. And I was team Scarlett because I kind of feel like, I mean, that's, I don't know, my taste, but whatever. I digress. Um, I would probably pick I don't know, what was some Brad Pitt for the same reasons. And a camera, I guess. Oh, take pictures of us all the time.
Camera.
So people would be like, "You're lying," and I'd be like, "No, I'm not lying. There's me
Yeah,
and Brad. That's Downward Dog.
right. You
That's
gotta
it.
you gotta be able to prove it, right?
Right, right. Pictures or didn't happen. Um, Downward Dog is a yoga position, not a sex position. It's been that long since I've done either. So number three, who is dumber, Tommy Tuberville or Lauren Boebert?
Oh man, that's really a hard question. I'm gonna say Tuberville is dumber because I think that like Bobert has those street smarts, like that guile a little bit, where
Yeah.
she could like really get herself out of a jam, if she was in one. So it's sort of like that street smart kind of thing that she has. Definitely no academic smarts.
No.
But Bobert can like get up and rattle off a 45-minute speech. Half of it's nonsense, but
I
she could do it in a stream of consciousness with no notes.
Yeah,
Tuberville couldn't give a 10-second speech without notes.
that's
He's
true.
he's really, really dumb. I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard him talk, I listen to all these guys so much, and he's right. He's right. I mean, Gomer was definitely smarter than Tuberville, because at
That's
least
saying a lot.
Gomer was like a county judge. You got to have at least have a little bit of smartness, even though it was like a small county in Texas, but
He
he was
spit out
still
his own
he was still a
tooth.
judge.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, Tuberville I think is maybe dumber. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, He's probably not as handy in a kids theater, but a kids show as Lauren Boebert is either.
Somebody on Twitter had like the best line about Boebert, which I really loved. It was like the guy said, I wouldn't vote for her, but I'd go to a movie with her.
Yeah. Oh, it's so sad. That was really like every now and then Twitter just whatever you want to call it hits that sweet spot, which
Yeah.
her date was trying to hit. And when that happened, it was like the Super Bowl of like Twitter content.
Everything coming together. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I posted it first. I posted it first,
I didn't know that. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. I mean, because it was reported by like a local Denver newspaper. And I didn't have the grope video. I only had the video that the only thing that they had originally was the video of her getting escorted out.
Where she gives the finger.
So
Yeah.
yeah, where and they didn't have the one of her in the seat. So I was the first one that posted that on Twitter, but I didn't have the groping part. But still, it was, went
Yeah.
crazy. And then,
Yeah.
and I think like 8 or 10 hours later, somebody else posted the second one, and then it went even bigger. But yes, that was a fun night. That was a fun night.
It was so sad that it's like, wait, what? Is she really giving the guy a hand job? It was like, wait, he was grabbing her boobs and there were kids. Like, what? Yeah. Yeah.
She had to switch districts because of it.
Right? I mean,
I think if that doesn't happen, she's still in that district.
You think so? I mean, even as close as it was?
Though that her poll numbers went
No shit.
Yeah, that was the kiss of death for her. Yeah, Adam did a poll that was pretty he paid for a poll to be done, Adam Frisch.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was up like 9 points or something, and she heard about that poll because she talked about it in an interview. That she heard about that poll and she knew it was correct, and she had to bail.
That's interesting because if that was,
and that was after the theater incident.
Right. But if she was a man, Republican man, I'm sure her poll probably would have, her numbers would have went up.
Well, it's the same thing with Bridget Ziegler.
Right.
If that was a guy in that threesome, they both would have been out of their jobs the next day.
Yeah.
But it's a woman in the threesome, so it's okay.
Yeah. Right. For him, not for her. Yeah. For her, it exposes hypocrisy. For him, it's a high five.
In the Republican world, though, there's a big difference between gay women and gay men.
Right. Right.
One is not so bad.
Right. Right. Two women.
And the other one is horrifying.
Yeah. Right? 2 women is the idea. Well, at least that's what they say publicly, because then you got Matt Schlapp out there and you got Mike Johnson having his son being his accountability partner and monitoring his porn intake. So what they say publicly and what they do privately, a very different matter. But
right.
Yeah. Okay. So on that subject, so you've got your podcast, which you've got that was just uncovered, right? That's still going. You're doing that once a week. Is that when that comes out?
Yep. Every Wednesday,
and where do they find that? On the Midas Touch Network?
Wednesday at 4. Yeah, we're live, and then you can catch it on YouTube. Yep.
Oh, you do it live?
We do it live every Wednesday at 4. Yeah.
That's ballsy.
That is big pressure.
That's brave. Yeah. I know.
What helps is Anthony has been a pro. My co-host has been a pro broadcaster in London for 30 years.
Okay.
And he just has everything just that flows. And I just talk,
He's the conductor, but
he sets everything up. He's got the clips ready. He's got, he's a pro.
But you didn't have him when you did your hit on msnbc the other night, and that was great. So you're obviously holding your own there in that equation too.
Yeah, I guess I do my part.
Yeah, definitely.
But I could not. I mean, I'm not a technical and I'm not a production person.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank God I have somebody like him, right?
Yeah, he's great. And then you're writing multiple, I don't know where you find all the time to do this, but you're writing more than one story on, again, Midas Touch Network a day. And you're so prolific. It's like, how did he do, how did he do that? I'm like spending 3 hours on one Substack and you're like, boom, 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 all day long. How do you do that?
Well, not only that, I have to edit everybody else's articles. We have 7 writers. So yeah, that can be the hard part, is like keeping up with, because when those guys get something good and they crank out a story, and they put it up there for me to edit and publish.
Yeah.
And so, I have to be mindful of that too. Like I'm working on my own stuff, but I have to step away from that because those guys all deserve to get their stuff out
Yeah.
timely, and they don't want to wait for me, hours and hours. So yeah, I have to do all that, edit their stories, and then do my own, and then of course watch, you know, so much stuff. But Asen is a godsend. He's a machine,
Yeah.
so he'll watch 6 different things at once.
Oh my God. Oh my
So
God.
he's really helped. Him. That's what I told them. Like when they asked me about who should we get, I give me somebody. I just gave him the first name I gave him was Asen.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
because he's a clip god.
Yeah, it's remarkable to me too, just in terms of sheer volume, what you guys can push out like in a day. Because I'm still in the weeds on a one tweet or one Substack, and you guys are like 14 videos and 17, different
Yeah.
articles in and a podcast. And I'm like, what? Are they? Come
Yeah.
on, how do they do that? But it's very impressive. And
We're all pretty crazy,
yeah.
like fanatical.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's great. And because the year that we're in right now, it's happening. It's all happening right now. We got to like really, really, really amp it up. Like it's not going to slow down anytime soon.
Yep, that's it. We're going all out. I mean, we're not sleeping, we're not taking days off, you
Nope.
know, we're till election day,
Yeah.
we're all
Yep.
in.
Yep. Same. As always, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I could talk to you for 25 hours. I didn't even scratch the surface on a million things I wanted to ask you about, but I know you're not going anywhere because I can always be like, hey, Ron, can you come talk to me about this? Because there's so much crazy, it never ends. But I'm so grateful just to have you out there to bounce stuff off of and to chat with and to come on and talk to me and explain things from your perspective, which is funny because it is different from mine, but we still managed to meet somewhere in the middle all the time or on the same side, depending on which way it is, which is great and shows you that it's possible, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you. What you do best is you're so many things I post, I don't comment on because I feel like it's going to get me in a tremendous amount of trouble if I say anything other than like a brief introduction of this photo or
Right.
this outfit or
Right.
whatever it is. I've learned to say very little because I
Smart.
know that you are then gonna come behind me and say what I wish I could say, but I can't.
No. And
So
I don't know if
your
I can.
responses are almost always like what's in my head.
Yeah. Well, because I think many times I do think like I don't know if it's like appropriate to say, but I think like a guy. I think like my son who's 14 and he's a boy, and I think these thoughts because I'm from Jersey. I don't know. It's always been the way I've been. And so I'm always like, if you put up a picture and it's just begging, it's like begging for me, Marge Green in the bar, and was literally they're clothed. It was just two people with a beer, and I was like, okay.
You
I
know,
mean, I gotta turn this into a
her
sex
her
thing.
boyfriend texted me about that.
Oh shit. No way.
He did.
Brian, right? Is it Brian?
Ryan, yeah. He said, "Hey man, I was there. I was in the bar with her." He goes, you know, he was a nice guy, bought her beer. Like he was like, I said, listen, man, I know. I didn't think I was just messing with her.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know that but I thought my caption was like, oh yeah, this is a cover story. They got caught, right?
Right.
Cheating. So it was
Right.
pretty funny that her boyfriend that texted me is like, no, I was there. Everything was good.
Well, you probably wouldn't have to do that if she didn't have that track record of slight infidelity issue. But yeah, that's why my captions included the guy going, I don't know what tank trick is, but if you're gonna do what you're saying you're gonna do, then sure, that's me. Tank trick.
And that's the funny thing is like sometimes and a tweet like that was a case like I was trying to insinuate something without actually saying it,
Right.
and a lot of people didn't get it.
Oh,
Like it didn't really take off at first like it should have
yeah.
until you explained basically what I was saying, and then everybody was like, "Oh, and then they all piled on.
Wait, thought bubbles. Hold on. Wait
Yeah.
a minute.
Yeah.
Something tawdry is happening here. Even it wasn't at all, but like you give me one of your pictures with a benign caption. I'm gonna put thought bubbles on it, and I'm usually gonna make it pretty dirty. That's just what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
if
like
I
a
did that,
comedy routine.
I'd have like 9 followers.
It
You know?
actually it's weird because most of my followers are guys, like it's just the truth.
Yeah.
For whatever reason that is, I don't know, but and I know that I speak to them the lower I go, and that's not I didn't mean it that way, by the way. But yeah, the more inappropriate I am, the more they enjoy it. So I'm just gonna keep sticking with it because it's who I am anyway, and it feels good because I don't always punch up, you know, often punch down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not above that. Look, they're going after me. I got a 7,000 memes of myself in Brooklyn dad eating cheesecake. Whatever. Like it's fair game.
I
Okay.
know. I don't know how I got on those lists with you guys,
I
man.
know. All of a sudden
It's
you
just
popped
like,
up.
how did this happen? You know,
That was you're a paid DNC shell.
how
I
did I
swear I
get on
spit
the
out my coffee.
dartboard? Yeah,
I
the dartboard of leftist militia.
When they described you as a DNC shill, I remember drinking a cup of coffee and I was like, that is not wrong.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah, but it keeps that picture keeps growing where it's like all of a sudden populating with I was the only woman on there for a while and now there's at least 5. So congrats to them. All right. Well, thank you again. Always love talking to you and happy new year. And good luck with everything that you're working on. And I will see you on what I still call Twitter. Do you still call it Twitter? I still call it Twitter.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't call it X.
Yeah, I don't think that's ever going to stick. And if anybody's going to charge people just to go on the site, it's not going to matter because nobody's going to do it. So that'll be
Yeah.
fun to see.
Yeah.
But everybody else, that concludes this episode of the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast. Again, my thanks to my friend Ron Filipkowski for joining me. As always, it's such a blast, and I wish I could do this every week because I enjoy it very much, and it flies by. And I know that was a long time. I think we went through an entire season in this video. But so thank you, Ron.
Got
All
it.
right, see you later, guys. Have a good week.